Okay. Welcome to Access Your Higher Guidance, Master Your Intuition to Create a Life with Intent. I'm Grace Garneau, and I have a great speaker for you here today. His name is Charles Pichello. Charles is a speaker, life coach, teacher, counselor, actor, author, and humanitarian. He received his Master of Arts degree from Goddard College, where he did an intensive study combining psychology and theater. He also developed a multidisciplinary approach to healing PTSD, trauma, and abuse, as well as any stress-related issues that emerge from conflict and violence. He works with individuals and groups to provide them with the tools they need to heal, renew, and transform. He's also an Air Force veteran and graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy, and he currently presides as Secretary for the Board of Directors of Soldier's Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, Charlie. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Grace. It's an honor to be here.
So I think you have a lot to share with us on the topic of accessing higher guidance. I think your work involves that all the time. And I would love for you to tell people a little bit about the work that you do in your life coaching and counseling. And just share a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I work with people who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, but I like to call it post-traumatic soul distress. Because essentially your soul is in distress. It's a piercing wound to the soul. That's what trauma is. In the ancient Greeks, they saw it meant a piercing wound. And it didn't matter if it was to the body, it didn't matter if it was to an inanimate object. That wound had social, spiritual, and moral dimensions to it. And it is a betrayal of what is right. It's anathema. It goes against the right way. And so it separates us, those traumas separate us, whether it's from war, whether it's because someone has been raped, whether someone has experienced child abuse or domestic violence, or has been involved in a serious accident, or whatever ways that we experience trauma, that can have a profound effect on our sense of self, and it disconnects us from ourself, our larger self, and our soul. And it's a betrayal of that sense of being grounded into the larger picture, that we are safe, that we are cared for, that we are nurtured, that we are loved. And those traumas can lead us to go into some very dark places. They're initiations. On a psycho-spiritual level, those traumatic experiences are initiations into a deeper and more profound understanding of ourselves. It allows us to be able to tap into God on a deeper level. God comes through the wound. This is Joseph Campbell. God comes through the wound. But what's very often happens is that we get stuck in the wound. And we're not able to learn how to go beyond it, because we've ended up treating it as a chemical issue, as a biological issue. And yes, there are changes to the brain's function. There are changes to what the body does and how it processes trauma. But it's on a deeper, more fundamental level, it's a wounding to our souls. And if we don't treat the soul, and what you see in the symptoms of trauma, of PTSD and all those things, those are reflections and symptoms of the soul that is wounded. And so if we're not tapping into that deeper guidance, that accessing that guidance that says we need to move through this area in order to tap into God within us, we will stay stuck in that trauma and continue to have the flashbacks, continue to have the nightmares, continue to be afraid to go out or to do anything, and we close ourselves in to be actually being able to experience a life we were meant to live.
So what kind of work do you do with people? Like, what kind of process helps people to come out of this? Like, what do you do to address this war within the soul?
Well, it's a long process. You know, it starts off with about tending and healing the wound. You've got to be able to go back into yourself, because I experienced it. And so what I coach people and I teach people, this is something that I went through. And I came from a family of veterans. Dad was in Vietnam. Grandfather was World War II. These things stay connected into a family's life cycle, the transgenerational wounding. And then I went into the military myself and experienced my moral injury while working on the nuclear warfare program. Moral injury is connected to the spiritual component of it, and that is basically your mind tells you to do something that your heart knows is wrong. and you do something that violates that, and that separates you from the interconnectedness of life, that separates you from the joy of life. And then when my crisis hit, where I was suicidal and was on the verge of ending everything, and it was literally like, when I came into the apartment where my fiance had just left, and all of the trauma that I had was a trigger, and all this trauma came up, and it was like a big opening wound where my soul should have been. And it was the most excruciating pain that I'd ever had in my entire life. It's like someone literally had stabbed me, pierced me with a spear, and all this rage and all this anger and all this grief spewed forth. And this pain never left me. It was like my soul was outside of my body. And so, yes, it was either get down on my hands and knees and start praying and connecting to God, or I wouldn't be here standing, on this interview with you. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things that I do with people is I start working with them with A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles was something that, for me, helped me to tap into those deeper spiritual truths and dimensions that are universal throughout all traditions. If somebody else if that doesn't resonate with people, we find a spiritual tradition that resonates with them to get to those deep core spiritual truths of love and forgiveness and compassion and empathy and the truth of the interconnectedness of life and forgiveness. And then we have to tend to the wounds. We have to be able to see and connect back to our joy, back to the things that make us happy, back to the things that define us for who we are. That is not dependent upon anybody else. And so we look at how we're communicating with ourselves, because the mind is racing in someone who has experienced a traumatic memory or traumatic experience. The memories, the feelings, the emotions, everything's on hyper alert. So we have to learn how to slow everything down. And so we start to incorporate meditation. And because meditation has had across the board scientifically the benefits of it, it helps to reduce the neurological impact and brings the body back to a place of homeostasis. And so you're learning how to meditate and start breathing, getting into the present moment, knowing that the past is in the past. It's not here right now. The future is still left in possibility. It's open to all kinds of things. And it's how we respond right now that is going to determine what's going to happen into our future. And so we look at that, and then we start doing atonement exercises and looking at our shadows and making meaning of those experiences, and slowly, progressively, gently going towards those things so that we're integrating those shadows, the darker elements, those traumatic experiences into our lives. Because once we begin to integrate those, our soul becomes larger. And we begin to fill that hole that we feel on the inside with the light that's already in there. And so it's a commitment as well to self-care on the body. You've got to be able to move the energy around that gets trapped, because the traumatic energy gets caught in the body and cells, and you've got to be able to move that, whether that's through yoga, whether that's through physical fitness or Tai Chi, whatever it is that's right for the individual. And we're going to continue to make new experiences, diving deep, understanding the process that goes on in the brains, how the stress affects the brain. So you're looking at it from the entire spectrum, whether it's the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, and the mental aspect. You have to treat the whole person, because we all originated in wholeness, and then we experience the trauma, and that fractures us and separates us from the wholeness that is already there. So all I'm trying to do is to help guide you back to your wholeness, to reveal that the wholeness is still there, and that eventually, as you do these processes and do this work, you begin to realize and feel the past starting to let go of you. The clients that I work with have amazing transformations on even in just like three sessions with me. Wow. And it's beyond, it's grace. Grace, it's grace. And then it's learning how to tell your story. Learning how to tell your story when it's just working with me, and then sharing that story within the community, because we have to heal within the community. One of the deepest things that I tell my clients and the people that I work with is that we have to start telling the truth. When we keep the secrets within us, the pain, the trauma, the betrayals, the feelings of inadequacy, the war wounds, the war within our soul, if we don't share that with others, we remain sick. And it's liars don't heal. People who don't share their stories, we don't heal. We have to empty ourselves of the story in order to make room for more of the light that is always available to us, that is being covered up by all this pain and by all this trauma. And then it's also about not only storytelling, but it's also about restitution. It's about giving back to the community, going out, being in selfless service and moving into those directions and realigning yourself with your integrity, realigning yourself with those archetypal patterns. In whether it's a woman or a man, but you have archetypal energies that you need to realign with. The king, the queen, the magician, the sorceress, the lover, and all these other aspects, and the anima, and the animas, getting those things in alignment so that you're not being affected by the shadow elements that are corrupting the system. And so once we can get a clear idea on that, then you start to begin to transform into this butterfly, and you carry those stories with wisdom, and they're a part of you, but they're not controlling you. And you have moved beyond that, and now you can share that with others in a way that's meaningful, that helps them to grow, that brings awareness, that brings more consciousness, and you begin to be in alignment with the source within you, the source that has always been within you. And now you can really feel the source vibrating and pulsating. And that's a beautiful feeling to have.
So the way that trauma opens the door to the divine is through this recovery process that you're describing?
Absolutely. It opens it up to the divine. I didn't know it when I was going through it until I actually experienced it myself. And so that's why, I know this process works. And it is when you feel like you are completely cut off from that sense, that connection, like when my soul had left my body. I mean, it took everything that I possibly could to keep moving and going forward. And I was just waiting for some moment for it to end. But as you become reconnected to the light within you, that starts getting brighter and brighter. And it is through those traumas that forces us to go deeper inside of us. It provides the opportunity to confront the deepest, darkest aspects of ourselves and open ourselves up to a deeper, more authentic spiritual connection.
Charlie, are you able to think of any examples of recovery stories where people have really opened up to their higher guidance and the divine through the work you've done?
Yes, absolutely. One of the first clients that I worked with, she was suicidal. She had been abused when she was very young, and she was very, very much reductionistic. There was no sense of guidance. What is this talking about? Spirit, and she was very resistant to it, but she trusted me enough to be able to, allow yourself to be guided. Trust those intuitions. Trust those little things that start to show up that tells you, let's go this way. Let's try this way. And she has now blossomed and is getting married and has found herself living her dream. And it was just by allowing herself to have faith. And it has a lot to do with faith, trusting that divine guidance is leading you the steps to get out of here. Psychotherapy was really about the psyche. In Greek means the soul. It was never about just the mind. It was an attendant to the soul. And so what I do is help to be an attendant to somebody's soul, trusting that the guidance that I'm receiving through the meditations that I do, through my morning work, through the prayers that I do, through the things that every time that I'm working with a client, I'm always connecting to their higher self, listening and tuning in. What is it do they need? And allowing myself to empty out, to get completely empty as far as I'm capable of doing in order to receive the guidance that I'm getting to help the person, so that when I'm listening to what their story is and what they're sharing, I'm tuning into what the soul is speaking and not trying to run away from that, and listening to it, sitting deeply with that, not running away from it, not trying to bury it. Let's explore this a little bit more. Let's understand what this means a little bit more. And, inviting that aspect whether it's pain, whether it's grief, whether it's rage, whether it's this feelings of inadequacy or fear or terror that's coming up. Let's examine it. Let's look at it. Let's explore it. Let's dive deeper into it. And there's a transformation that happens. And there's another woman who I'm working with right now. She had severe PTSD, was suicidal, and she's been on antidepressants. And we've been working for 3 months now. And she has brightened up. She is bringing in all this, connecting back to spirit in a different way that she never thought she would before. Her face has changed. She's lighter. She's dressing up. She's doing wonderful. And so it is trusting that those little impulses, those messages that you get from God, from Source, are guiding you to help that unique person who stands before you, and allowing them to unfold and heal from within. Mm-hmm. Because we all heal from within. We only merely act as the guides to help you to open up to that. And you have to trust in that process.
Charlie, what would you suggest to people if you were going to, obviously coming for a session would be a suggestion, but beyond that, what kind of things would you suggest people do to become more in tune with their guidance?
Meditation. Meditation is absolutely, I think, and visualization of a divine being present with you, being around you all the time, knowing that your angels are with you all the time, and inviting them. Every time I open up a session with somebody, I say my prayers, and I invite the angels and the guides to all descend and to bring light and love into the space, so that and healing into this space, so that people, that when they come in, they're moving into a liminal space. They're moving in from the ordinary world into the liminal space. So you can do that every day. You can invite your angels and guides every morning and pray and saying gratitude. Thank you for my life. Thank you for the life that has been given me. And inviting them to, angels, guides, ascended masters, please come in and guide my thoughts, my words, and my actions all throughout the day. Guide my heart so that my heart is open, my heart chakra is open, so that I can be available to those people who are coming in my world, so that I can be of service to them and help me to see what I need to see, know what I need to know, and say and be who I need to be. And you can do that every single day. And so it's doing simple little practice, and I like to keep it simple. For me, I like a little a Tibetan singing bowl. I have one of those Tibetan singing bowls that I always play, and it just changes. And right there, when you just hear that beautiful sound and that resonance, it takes you out of your mind. It takes you out of that place right there. And lighting candles that are Reiki charged is another beautiful way to invite the divine presence within you, and you can feel it. There's a calmness, there's a peace, and there's an openness. It allows people to open up. Mm-hmm. And so those are the things that I recommend as far as how you can access that divine guidance every day of your life. Every day of your life if you do this.
I love that about remembering to ask. It's so important to ask and to invite. Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
I think that's one of the most important things is they want to help. You have to ask them to come in, though. You have to ask first for their assistance, for their guidance, for their influence. But if you don't ask, they can't come in. It's one of those divine laws, I think. We have to ask for their assistance for them to come in. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important. Yeah. For me, anyway.
Now, do you have a process that you can share with us today? A guided meditation or some kind of experiential exercise?
I would love to. I came across this. I was doing some work on the rainbow body and resurrection. Because was it myth? Was it truth? Was it fiction? And just went through the whole stories. Oops.
I don't know what that is, and maybe some of our viewers don't. Could you explain a little bit?
Of course, the rainbow body phenomenon are these Tibetan monks that have been able to transmute their body into light. And there was a case of a Tibetan monk by the name of Kempo Cho, which was in 1998, who was able to transmute his whole body into light over 8 days. They had all these witnesses all around him, watching this as it happened. And over the course of the 8 days, they saw all these rainbows, triangle rainbows, rainbows up, vertical rainbows, all these rainbows all around. There was a rain of grace that came down all around the place. They smelled the flowers. There was this big, beautiful ball of light from the distance that people could see. And so I was and then by the end of the 8 days, when they lifted up his blanket, he was no longer there. And so it was one of these paranormal events that was documented and written about by a priest named Father Francis T. Viso, I think his last name is. And anyway, it was documented, and there's been other cases of this happening. So I was linking Jesus's resurrection to people who are doing other beautiful spiritual transmutations, these high beings, to saying that it is possible for humans to do that it is in a universal experience. And one of the things that I got from while I was researching this and putting I have a radio TV show called The Council, and it's on KUHSdenver.com. It's every 2 weeks. And so that's the show I was preparing this show for. And on this, they had a beautiful meditation that the Dalai Lama gave. And that's the gift that I would like to give everyone. And it's very simple. It's a very simple practice. You just sit and you visualize before you whatever being, spiritual being, maybe it's Jesus, maybe it's Kuan Yin, maybe it's Archangel Michael, maybe it's Mother Mary, maybe it's Buddha, maybe it's Shiva, and just visualize them before you and see them in all their glory, in all their beauty, and allow that vision. And you can then, once you see them, allow them to come into your heart. Just allow them to come into your heart. Mm-hmm. And seeing them, visualizing them before you, allow them to come into your heart and just feel that light and breathe it in. And then on your next breath, see this ascended master, angelic being, and watch as they enter and come into your heart and fill your entire heart with this light and love and grace and beauty, and breathe that in deeply. And now this feeling that you feel, the love that this ascended master, light being gave you, now just imagine it being sent from your heart to every place on the world. Sending that light from Jesus, from Mary, from Buddha, from Krishna, from Archangel Michael, whoever it may be, sending it out to the world. And now breathe in deeply. And then the last thing is to take one deep breath and sit with this gift that you feel inside, in silence and in peace.
Thank you, Charlie. That was really nice. I actually saw an image. I brought Mother Mary into my heart, and when you said something about feeling the gift, I don't know if I remember correctly, I saw an actual gift with a blue ribbon, and then I became the gift. Thank you. That was nice.
Oh, thank you. I find it is such a simple way. such a very simple, beautiful, incredible way to connect with the divine.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it anywhere. All you need, you can spend a minute on it if you need it, and you're in traffic someplace and you're overwhelmed with the stressors that are coming on. And you can do that in your car, you can do that in your home, you can do that. Spend 20 minutes just allowing that to descend and come through. And the effect of it is so profound.
You know, it's actually kind of like another aspect of inviting, because you're inviting it into your heart,
Yes,
right? It's creating an invitation. Yeah.
yes.
Beautiful. Charlie, is there anything else that you would like to share with us today on this topic? It's important to you to, or
Sure. I think it's, when we heal the wounds in our soul,
mm-hmm.
when we finally come to the place where we do the highest moral act that we can do, which is to own and integrate our own shadows,
Yes.
so that we are no longer projecting that out into the world. We add not only our light, but we add to the light of the world. And that is going to help us to make that cosmic change, that cosmic shift, that conscious shift
Mm-hmm.
that is going to help to transform the world. But we each must do our part. So when your soul is in distress, treat the soul, not the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And love yourself so much. Know that you are so deserving of the love that God has for you, and that every single one of you out there is worthy of it. And find that love within you. It is a light that burns within, and just feel the grace that comes with opening yourself up to the divine.
Thank you, Charlie. That's really beautiful. And how can people reach you if they would like to contact you for any of the things that you offer?
Well, they can contact me at my website, which is www.charliepacello.com. That's Charlie Pacello, Charlie. P is in Peter, A is in Apple, C is in Charlie, E is in Echo, L is in Lima, L is in Lima, O is in Oscar. So charliepacello.com. Send me an email. I'll get in contact with you right away. I also have a free offer for those of you who are interested in the work that I do. There's a whole 30-day course that I developed with Dr. Sarah Larson. It's about a Course in Miracles program. It's to help shift. There's a link that you can connect to, and that'll give you to the first one. And then once you're done with that one, I'll send you the second one and third one, and you'll have the whole 30-day course. They're 5 minutes a day, or 30-day course. It's 5 minutes a day. And watch how miracles begin starting to happen in your life as you begin to gain trust and confidence and generosity and sinlessness into your life, and my love for myself. I am as God created me, and all these things that are connected to the thought forms that can help to elevate your life into a completely new paradigm. And it'll be my pleasure to share that with all of you who get in contact with me.
Thank you, Charlie. That's a very generous gift. That's really nice. I'm really thrilled that you're offering that to everybody. And it's absolutely wonderful to hear about the work that you're doing with people. It's a huge transformation for people, and it's lovely to see. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Grace. It's been an honor talking with you and with everybody who's watching this today. And really, really appreciate it.
All right. You have a great day.
Thank you, Grace.